What is up, my people? You're in the place for Triple D Conversation. My name is Tristan Deves, and today we're going to be going over the XYZ monsters that we utilize in the DDD deck. Now, some of these you might not agree with, and that's absolutely fine, but what we're going to be looking through today is what we can actually utilize to promote our deck's efficiency, as well as what we can utilize for sheer power. So the first card we have today for you guys is that Stunking Darius. I myself have my cheeky little no-name Stunking Darius alongside the DDD Stunking Darius with the name as well. Now, this guy is quite an essential card to the deck. King Darius itself requires 2 level 3 fiend type monsters. Now that in itself is actually quite efficient due to the fact that we don't have to rely on DDD monsters. So one of the monsters that comes to mind for me is the Tour Guide of the Underworld, where it's able to special summon any other level 3 monster that is a fiend from our deck to go straight into our Triple D Stunking Darius. Now that being said, the monster itself isn't that powerful. With only 1900 attack and only 1000 defense, it's not an actual beater that's going to knock over your opponent's monsters. But the effects are quite interesting. If you've got yourself a Dark Contract on the field already, you can utilize this guy's ability to attach a material, destroy your Dark Contract of any type, send it to the graveyards, and in doing so you get to draw 1 card. So not only on your Dark Contracts are you actually giving yourself another card from your deck to your hands, but you're also able to draw an extra random card from your deck off of this guy's effect. The secondary effect of this card is actually quite an interesting one. When it does battle with an opponent's monster, you can detach 1 material from this card and make it unable to be destroyed by battle this turn. After that, you actually inflict 500 damage to your opponent as well as destroying your opponent's monster if able to. Now, in doing all of that, I do feel like this card actually has some playability in this deck. The only downside for me is that, in my opinion, the level 3 DD monsters that we do have in this deck already just aren't efficient enough and don't really play a big enough role to be able to get this card on the field. Now, you do have things like the format, but if you're going to be utilizing the format, why aren't you going into a rank 4 in of itself and going in to get your rank 5 play and keep progressing that way? This card for me just doesn't quite cut it in the deck style, but I would love to see it played more often. I'd love to utilize a Tour Guide from the Underworld combo to be able to special summon another level 3 monster and actually utilize the card more often. So for that reason, this card for me is just going in the dead pile for now. It's not really playable in this deck as the moment stands. Another DDD card that this deck utilizes really well is actually the rank 4 XYZ monster, Wave King Caesar. Wave King Caesar is essentially one giant middle finger to your opponent. It allows you to monster reborn your entire field at every card that was destroyed during either your opponent's turn or during your turn, which is what makes it such a great card to bring back to the field. You can even utilize its secondary effect by attacking a monster with higher attack after you've detached 1 material, and then bringing back your own Wave King Caesar during the end of that turn. In doing so, you're actually still keeping yourself a body whilst also allowing your secondary effect to activate, whereby you'll be able to grab a contract of the gate from your deck, bring it to your hands, being able to utilize it for either next turn or the turn that you're currently running on. Now, obviously that isn't the most efficient play because you are taking life point damage, but it does leave much to be considered. Now, for me, Wave King Caesar is just a straight up win in my books, and for that reason, I'm going to be putting it in the keep pile for the deck itself, especially if you're running pure DDDs. Coming up next, we have the Marksman Kingtel. Now, Marksman Kingtel for me is one of those hit and miss cards. Marksman Kingtel's main ability, we utilize it for its Foolish Burial. So we'll go into a DDD Link monster, i.e. Gilgamesh, utilizing this card with another card to get that Gilga on the field, allowing us to Foolish Burial another card to our graveyards. Potentially a Swellslime if we haven't already, or a Vice Typhoon if we haven't done that one either. So that's the main use for this card. However, there is the alternative use, whereby if you were to take effect damage, you could target 1 other monster on the field, make it lose 1000 attack points, and in doing so, your opponent will lose 1000 life points. So it is kind of an alternative route to go for it if you are going for a burn strategy, and the fact that it only requires 2 level 5 monsters that don't have to be fiend does make it a bit more interesting, unlike with the Wave King Caesar that requires 2 level 4 fiend type monsters, and your Stunking Darius, which also requires 2 level 3 fiend type monsters. So for that reason, Marksman Kingtel is one of my favorite DDD cards, just because there is so much accessibility across the board. Marksman Kingtel can also be special summoned to the field as an XYZ monster through utilizing Wave King Caesar as its overlay material. And for that reason, because of its efficiency and just the way we can roll with it, that's why I think it's definitely a card that should be played in the DDD archetype, especially if you're playing those pure plays and you're actually going for 2 to 3 to 4 card combos. Now, our next card on the list is DDD Wave Hiking Caesar. Now, I actually used to love this card. I used to love going from the simple Swell Slime and the Necro Slime, going to the graveyard, creating your Flame King Genghis, then going for another Swell Slime, another Necro Slime in the graveyard, utilizing another Flame King Genghis on the field, so now we've got 2, and then going straight into the DDD Wave Hiking Caesar, which only requires 2 level 6 Fiends monsters. The only downside for this guy is there's actually no level 6 Fiend type monsters that you can actually special summon to the field. So unless you're using like a before met play with another Flame Hiking Genghis, it does leave much to be desired. So this card as a whole, although it stops pretty much all special summons, which isn't a soft once per turn, it is very difficult to get it out on the field, and getting it out on the field before Nibiru hits you is also another very difficult strategy to even pull off in the first place, and does require a lot of setup to do so. But that being said, with Nibiru being such a big hand trap at the moment, I do believe he does deserve a spot in our actual extra deck. However, just because of the inefficiency to actually get him out onto the field, I am for the time being just going to keep him up here out of the way and not actually have him in my extra deck as of a whole. Coming up next is my favorite DDD monster, and that's Yuga. Now, Yuga in of itself is basically an entire field negate, and what I love about it is it also has the ability to be a heavy storm. Now, utilizing it as a heavy storm essentially prevents your opponent from utilizing their traps as efficiently as possible. Any situational cards that they want to play at a later date that they've already set, you can essentially get rid of them and prevent them from doing anything. You can also utilize its special ability to set a contract from the graveyard to your field, and then you can utilize it for next turn. And because it's set face down, it means you're not going to take that 1000 damage. That being said, if you've already utilized the contract to get it out in the first place, you're then going to be able to wipe that contract to the gate off the field, and you're also going to be able to wipe your pendulum scales if you don't want them there and you want to reset for next turn. So for me, DDD Duo King Yuga is actually one of the most efficient cards for this deck in terms of just getting it out on the field for a 1-card combo first turn, especially with that Kepler combo that I've just released. I do believe it deserves a massive spot in this deck, and obviously you can move on from there. The last Xyz card that we have for the DDD archetype is our Super Doom King Darkarmageddon. Now, Darkarmageddon is a really nice card to get on the field, simply because on summon you can attach 1 pendulum monster from your extra deck that's face up already to this card as material, allowing you to have 3 materials on the card itself instead of 2. Then you can destroy as many monsters your opponent controls up to the number of pendulum monsters you control. Now, due to the fact that Super Doom King Armageddon is in of itself a pendulum monster, it allows us to at least destroy 1 monster our opponent controls at any one time. The second part of this card that I absolutely love is the fact that when it is destroyed, it can be set into our pendulum scale. Now, as is a pendulum scale of 1, it does give us the ability to mess around with our pendulums a little bit and actually bring them back to the fields and have a whole body to protect ourselves. But the best part about this card is that once per turn, if you have a DD card in one of your other pendulum zones, you can special summon 1 Triple D Xyz monster from your extra deck, except Triple D Super Doom King Armageddon, which is why this card is only useful as long as you're running multiple Triple D Xyz monsters in your extra deck in the first place. Now, if you wanted to intentionally get this card off the field so you can bring out your Wave Hiking Caesar, it doesn't make sense.
Not listening.
You don't have any materials to detach from this card for its effects to activate. Likewise with things like Duo King Yuga, of course you can get it out onto your field and it's a 3.5k beta. You're better off getting your Wave King Caesar, giving yourself that contract at the gate, or you're better off going for that Marksman Kingtel to be able to send some fusion material to the graveyard to better extend your plays. But for that reason, I do think it's a very nice card to have in your deck, and definitely it has an effect similar to Gilgamesh, whereby when it's destroyed by a battle, essentially you can utilize its ability to bring out any DD monster. This guy obviously is only for Xyz, but I do think it's very beneficial. So for that reason, I'm going to be putting it in the maybes. It just depends on how you're playing and how much space you have. Now, with that all being said, I hope you've enjoyed today's video. Other than that, I'll see you guys Monday.